Hi, hello, Sat Sri Akal. You all are watching Punjab Kesari Nowadays Times. I am Namita Sachdev with you. Well, friends, science is a very important part of our everyday life, and even more so what we notice. From our fancy gadgets to the technologies we can't even live without, from a humble light bulb, or we can say to the space explorations, it is all a gift of science and technology. Now, I wonder what we would be doing if none of these were invented for us. How often we do take time out to think about those extraordinary minds or extraordinary people who made life easier to us. But I believe Bollywood has left no stone unturned in this of coming up with the lives of these extraordinary talents of the country. Yes, I'm talking about Mr. Siddharth Roy Kapurs, who has convinced with the idea of coming up with this kind of a movie. So I would like to welcome him along with the cast of Rocket Boys who are with us right now. Very talented people, Mr. Ishwak Singh, Mr. Jim Sarb, and very gorgeous Regina Cassandra. बहुत बहुत स्वागत आप सबका. Welcome all of you to Punjab Kesari Nowadays Times. How are you?
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you
Namita.
so much.
Thank you.
Thanks.
So first question goes to you, Siddharth. As I said, what convinced you or what convinced you to make a film on this kind of a true story on these legends of our world?
So I just want to say firstly that we don't have Nikhil Advani and Abhay Pannu with us, unfortunately, who have created this wonderful series. But I'll just start by saying that we're always looking to do interesting content that is differentiated and that tells stories that we probably haven't been able to tell in our cinema or like actually on television either. And a writer called Abhay Korane, we have a lot of Abhays associated with this series. Came to us with a wonderful story about these two scientists that we've all only heard about and read about, and we have a general sense of, but don't know enough about and had no idea that their lives were so intertwined with each other. And that while they were, friends and like sort of compatriots, they had a very different sense of what the future of the nation should be. And they were both complete patriots, but they had a different sense of the future for the country. We took that idea and we loved it, and we spoke to Nikhil Advani about it, and he loved it too. And when he shared it with Abhay Pannu, who's worked with him for a long time, Abhay just took the baton and ran, and he wrote an incredible show, and then we got this incredible cast on board as well, and that's really where the journey.
Absolutely. So true, you have said. So starting with you, Jim Saab, you are playing Dr. Homi Bhabha. It's a big responsibility playing this legend on screen. I want to ask you, there is a process when you have to learn for your character, and there is a process when you have to unlearn things. So what did you unlearn in playing this character on screen?
I don't think you can ever separate yourself from a character you play. It's just always going to be some kind of marriage between the two, because if I could actually turn into another person, then, we wouldn't need actors, we just need like chameleons. And so I think that there are two parts to the question, in my opinion. One is talking about the responsibility of playing the character. And as far as that goes, when you think about a great person, you think about them with the glow of the future, right? So when you look back on their lives, you see the sum of their actions and their behaviors, and you say this was a great person. But in the moment, the person is actually just trying to solve problems and is just trying to bring their vision into reality and is just trying to find a way to live a happy, complete life. And everything I had read about Homi Bhabha just still gives me goosebumps, because the way that he's described is, apart from his contributions to science, he was really considered a complete person, almost like a Renaissance man. He had a...
No, I'm sorry I'm stopping you in between, but I just want to know, how much did you know about Dr. Homi before you got approached for the character?
Not that much. I mean, I knew of him as a legendary figure. I knew of him as the father of the India's nuclear program. I knew that he had studied physics and made contributions in that regard. I just found out all of this other thing, all of this other side to him, this more humanizing side when we started reading the scripts and reading about him, which is, he just had profound interest in art. could play the violin, was an artist, supported most of the modern Indian art movement. He wrote books on culture. He just had, and apparently he had a wicked sense of humor and a relentless drive. And I just think that it's incredible that a person, given the resources that were available in a very new India, right? Because this is coming out from under colonial rule at the time. So I think the things that I learn, when you said learn and unlearn in regarding playing the part, I think I tried to think about it less in terms of responsibility and legacy, because again, the person doesn't know. The person in the moment doesn't know what their legacy is going to be, or how people are going to view them. In the moment, the person is just trying to do things. So we tried to, instead of thinking about it like that, we tried to think about it as, what is his approach to life? What is a genius's approach to life? What is a person who thinks faster than everybody else in the room? How do they come at day-to-day situations? Because I love this like anecdote of, not anecdote, but Picasso, great painter, but he needed socks. So he probably went to the store and bought socks. And that, gives me comfort, because I'm like, oh yeah, Homi Bhabha, I probably just woke up in the morning and was hungry, or wanted coffee, or was feeling a bit grouchy that day, or was not feeling grouchy that day, was feeling great. Just woke up on the right side of the bed that day. So me and Abhay, with like extensive workshopping, have tried our best to create a real person, not just a cardboard great figure cutout, a person with real desires and a mercurial, interesting person. Okay, that's all.
Very nice. Achha, can I ask Ishwak, how much time did he take to become the father of space program? That's Dr. Vikram Sarabhai.
So it's not over. It's like you're still becoming. It's become so much a part of my daily life that and this character has given so much, in the sense that the places that it took me to, it took a fair bit of time, and we had some time, because when we started, there was enough time to sort of do the basic work, the prep work, preliminary peripheral work on the script. And it was a beautiful process with a lot of workshopping, a lot of reading on the subject. There's a beautiful biography on Dr. Sarabhai. Then I knew that he was a Gandhian through the biography and through the Bible, which is the script. Got to know things about him, and which took me to places. And I couldn't physically go because we were in the middle of a pandemic, and so it had to be done virtually through books. So I read about ISRO, read about the atomic energy, some wonderful books on that. And his principles, he was a Gandhian, he believed in Tagore. Einstein was a huge influence. So I read about all his mentors. And that kind of, gives you a sense of how this person would have taken, or what he could have taken. It's like, an actor is like a prism. And what comes out is what, it's like you feel that this is something that the Vikram in me would have basically taken from all these things, all this information that I fed myself with. So it was an ongoing process. I wouldn't put a full stop to it at any given point. And when I say it's still going on, is because when you finish a performance and you do play a part like this, where you end up reading Gandhi, revisiting Gandhi. I read Gandhi, but I accessed something new, something I hadn't read, and I wanted to read for a long time, which was Hind Swaraj. Took something beautiful from that, and it just stays with you, becomes a part of your life, and you kind of get inspired by it.
Definitely, absolutely. Regina, if I ask you, how challenging was that for you to play such an iconic character of Mrinalini, who was a dancer? So adapting all the qualities or body language of a dancer, I believe is very difficult.
Yeah, that would probably be for someone who is not too well versed with dance, but I love dance. I've danced from a very young age. I learned Bharatanatyam when I was around 9 years. I learned for about 4 years, and I absolutely love the art form. I mean, I was ecstatic when I learned that I'm going to be playing the role. The first thing that came to my mind was, oh my God, we're in the midst of a pandemic. I don't think I'll be able to go for Bharatanatyam classes. So I'll have to get a teacher, and I did it virtually. So I would like go tatai, diditai at home every day, get shouted at by the neighbors, which is fine. But once they see rocket pies, they'll all be happy. But yeah, it was more than getting the posture and all of that. It was more of I have two and a half ish performances in the show, and I had to look like a seasoned dancer, someone who's just been doing this all her life, you know. That was the tough bit to get that. Because I know that there will be people who will watch that and I mean I'm sure they will point out things. So that was my main thing. But otherwise it was really nice getting into the skin of the character. And um she is someone that I mean anyone would have loved to have portray on screen, you know, to bring to life.
Definitely, I agree to that. Siddharth, my next question goes to you. Is like, how much tricky was that for the team to cast star cast like Ishwak, Jim, Regina for their respective characters?
Very hard.
Jim,
I mean, I have to say that we got really lucky because the first choices for each of the parts were the ones that we finally cast. So I'd love to give you a long story about our tough casting process. It really wasn't that hard at all because they sort of literally cast themselves. I mean, these are when you watch the show, you'll see how apt they are for the roles and how they've made these sort of towering personalities their own. And you know, when you speak about responsibility, in a sense, future generations are going to be watching this, and their impression of Homi Bhabha is going to be the way Jim plays Homi Bhabha. The impression of Vikram Sarabhai is the way that, you know, Ishwak plays it, or the impression of Rinalini will be the way that Regina portrayed her. And they're going to think of them as these characters, as often happens in history. We think of Ben Kingsley when we think of Gandhi, right? Because that's so imprinted in our mind. And I'm so glad that we were, you know, able to cast the right characters to portray these incredible icons.
I still think of myself when I think of Freddie Mercury, though. I don't know. I don't think of Rami Malek.
But one more question, Siddharth, is like, have you discussed with your team about like taking the creative liberty, the appropriate one, I believe, to make a concept like this or to come up with a story like this?
So actually, there was a lot of research that went into this project. There was a tremendous amount of research that went into it. So all the events that pretty much happened. Obviously, you dramatize certain events when you're creating something, but it was more dramatization than anything else. And I think you know, we've been very faithful to the way that events played out, because the idea really was to portray history as it played out. But obviously, conversations between characters, etc., you sort of connect the dots between events and you dramatize the way that things would have played out. But you know, Abhay, Nikhil, and you know, an incredible team of researchers went very, very deep into the way that the things happened. And in the case of the Sarabhais, we luckily had the family, you know, with us as well, and we were able to tap into them, you know, a lot. And so, you know, so the Sarabhai family, we went and met them. We spoke to them about the show. They were very, very happy to be involved. And in fact, at Regina's performance, we actually had Malika Sarabhai there on set, which was incredible. I think for her to see her mother being portrayed by Regina and for her to be dancing.
She choreographed the bits, yeah.
And she actually choreographed that too. So, you know, we try to be as authentic as possible to the way that things played out.
My next question goes to Jim and Ishwak. Like, what are your takeaways playing such icons of the world on screen? Starting with you, Jim.
You know, there are many takeaways. If I were to say the most important two to me, one is the quality of his interest. The quality of Homi Bhabha's interest in the things that he got interested in was so penetrating and deep and in a way profound, and he was not afraid of the work, the hard work that was required in order to get good at those things, or to improve at those things, or to develop that interest further. So you just see the wide variety of things that got his interest, even within science. I mean, he went from he was interested in theoretical physics, molecular biology, astronomy, and many more. And this is just within the one field. In addition, like I said, music, culture, art, um, interest in people, politics, human behavior. I mean, I think just now in our time, we are even rewarded for a shallow interest, knowing enough catchphrases to sound like you know enough about something, but actually not knowing much about it. Whereas whatever he got interested in, he really saw it through. And I think that's incredible. That's the one of the things. And so quality of interest. And the second thing is both Dr. Homi Bhabha and Dr. Sarabhai had tremendous resources at their disposal, not just intellectual resources and, the luck of their birth and their genetics. I mean, also like Dr. Sarabhai had the entire Ambalal Sarabhai estate behind him, and Homi Bhabha had access to JRD Tata's funds and resources. And despite both of them being men of the world, and they could have easily squandered these resources, but instead they very much took on the responsibility of, we have a certain amount of privilege, and consequently we will give back to our country specifically. And I think that is, as a person who has not spent a lot of his life feeling like I identify with one particular country, because I lived in Sydney when I was younger, then I was back here, then I was in the States for a while. Learning about these guys is awakening something, So yeah, those would be my two big takeaways.
Very nice. So same question goes to Ishwak also.
Yeah, I mean, it's not singular. It's not a single thing. Like Jim said, that there's so many things. And the one thing that I personally feel that was remarkable with Dr. Vikram Sarabhai was that it specifically is just probably the second point that Jim mentioned. It's something that I was, in fact, when I was kind of thinking about it, I realized that while there were so many things, they were inspiring in so many ways in terms of, it's just that I think, talk about the story. These were the good old days, the golden era of so many things. And I asked myself that what was it about these people and those times? And the answer that I get is that more than anything else, apart from the science and the courage and all those things that they showed, they were men of honor, integrity. And that is something that is hugely inspiring. Something I think over the years, we still have men of honor. It's not that we don't, but they certainly were. And those times were different. I kind of am particularly fond of those years. It's like, my grandmother used to tell me all these stories about my grandfather, and I mean, their lives. It's kind of just takes me back to those times, which is why I call it the golden era. But like Jim made the second point, it's something that I personally feel that was amazing, that, and also inspires me, and I'm sure it's going to inspire the audience too, that what you can make of and what you can achieve if you use your resources and put them to the right use. I mean, these people could have really inherited all the wealth and whatever the legacies that they were handed over. But in case of Dr. Vikram Sarabhai, he chose to first enhance and take his business along with other things. He was also involved in his business. He took that. So he sort of, after his education, did what the family was expected out of him from the family, that responsibility. He took over that responsibility and took it to the next level. Then he worked for the people around him, his community, and then for for his people, for his country. So it kept expanding. He kept expanding his and using his means, his knowledge, his education to benefit, the family, the community, and the country, and actually even beyond. So I think that's one thing that's stayed with me. And there's so many things, really. I mean, if we can just go on and on. It's once you watch the show, we should have a conversation again, and then we both can probably identify different things.
Like, how did you come up with the idea of making such a masterpiece? Then we'll see it, probably,
Well, let's hope so.
We hope so.
So one last question to Regina also, like, what are your personal thoughts on a scientist getting in love with a dancer? Or two professions poles apart, an artist and a scientist.
Well, falling in love with a scientist, I think, firstly, I don't think it falls apart because as people, they were very similar in the sense they wanted to achieve quite a bit. They were very forward thinking. They were very proactive. Just different fields, and I don't think that should matter at all because they were like a power couple, if whatever you'd call today. Yeah, I guess there was a spark between the two of them, and you can see it. You could see it, and I think there's a lot that I could take back from Mrinalini as well. From the way she handled things, and yeah, I think she was a beautiful woman. I would have loved to have met her also.
Definitely. Siddharth, at the end, like we see a glimpse of Dr. APJ. Also, do we get to see his life also be portrayed in the series?
I think you'll have to watch the series to find that out.
My question was, or we have to wait for the sequel?
Well, since you've seen him in the trailer, I mean, this much you know that he appears. Now, how much he appears, just wait for a few days. You'll know.
Definitely. We are so looking forward for the story like this because I believe personally that these kind of stories or content are much helpful and useful for the future of our country. And you should all come up with that. Thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Namita.